Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown of predictions video. This week, we've got another Dana White Contender Series show going on, Dana White Contender Series Week 8. And I actually like this card. I like the matchups. I think we got some pretty high-level fighters. I think it's definitely a higher-level fight card than last week's card. So definitely excited to break it down here. And besides that, man, this week we don't got a UFC. It was 17 weeks in a row with the UFC. This is the first week in 17 weeks that we haven't had one. And I'm kind of happy about it. I mean, I know UFC is awesome and I love watching it every week, but man, I mean, I was starting to get worn down a little bit by the amount in a row, especially with doing content. So, but yeah, man, there's a couple other shows going on this week. I know there's PFL Europe and Ryzen, and I think a ONE FC show, but most of MMA this week is kind of quiet. So we're going to be coming back next week hard, but on the Patreon, we do have 3 bets for this week, and we got some other shows to potentially look at and bet on. So potentially could have some more bets, but we're going to get into this first fight of the night here. We got Vinicius Oliveri. He's taking on Victor Madrigal. And Vinicius Oliveri is 27. He's coming out of Brazil. He trains with Sombra Team MMA, which I don't know much about that gym. They don't have too many higher level guys, but he's 18-3 Oliveira, which is a great record. He's been fighting for UAE Warriors recently. He is the former UAE Warriors bantamweight champion. He lost the belt last July, but he did bounce back with a win in March of this year, and this is going to be the second fight of 2023 for him. This is the biggest fight of his life. I mean, he's already been fighting top-notch competition. He's had 21 fights, should be ready for the UFC. He's had a long grind to get to this position, so it's going to be devastating if he can't produce. He needs to fight like his life depends on it on Tuesday and really get busy. And you look at Oliveri, he's incredibly athletic. He has a hands-down style. He has a good in-and-out movement. He keeps the distance well. He will pressure forward, throw big kicks, and he likes to throw a lot of leg kicks, front kicks, head kicks. He'll switch stance. When fighters get inside, he has fast hands, but not really too technical. He just tends to kind of put his head down or lean his head back and wing big punches. And he does have crazy power and hand speed, though, so it works for him because it's like he's really fast. It's hard to get inside on him. When you do get inside on him, you got to be ready for these big, powerful hooks and defend those. So it's tough to counter, but guys that have been able to land, when you can land clean on him, it's hard for him to see it coming. He's so offensive that usually the shots are very powerful, and he's been finished with strikes 3 times. Recently, Ali Taleb knocked him out with the counter hook, and Oliver has 14 knockout wins himself, though. So most of the time, he's the one doing the damage in his fights. And he's a good grappler. He doesn't really wrestle offensively, and his defensive wrestling isn't great, but he's super hard to hold down. And when he can get the back or a dominant position, he's an aggressive submission hunter. If he gets on top, he's going to have an edge in the grappling, I believe. I don't see either fighter really going for takedowns, though, but Oliveri pushes a high pace. He has great cardio. And he's going to be facing a Mexican, so you know he's going to be in great condition as well. And Victor Hugo Madrigal, he's 33 years old. He's a Mexican fighter. He's training out at Mad Dogs MMA, which is a smaller gym over there. And he's 12-3 in his career. He's looked good, winning 3 fights in a row. He won the Budo Cento Championship in his last fight. He beat Jose Quinones in that fight, who's a UFC veteran. And he's defeated Christian Quinones as well, who's also in the UFC. His losses came against Marcelo Rojo, who's a Contender Series and PFL vet. Alejandro Flores. Marcelo Rojo was a UFC vet. Flores was the Contender Series and PFL vet. And he lost to Pepe Vargas as well, who's a good regional scene fighter. So he's fought the best competition he can find, and that should have him prepared for Tuesday. He's a pretty good striker. He likes to pressure. He has a good jab. He has good boxing. He's a little low volume, but he'll back guys up and then throw big power. His right cross is getting a little bit sharper, straighter. And he has good composure. He can land clean in the pocket. He has 7 knockout wins. And he's had a good chin historically. He's only been finished 1 time. It was kind of a bad knockout, too. He got KO'd really bad in the first round against Marcelo Rojo. But besides that, his chin is held up. Defensive wrestling is not good for Madrigal. He can be taken down. He can be held down. If you saw his fight with Alejandro Flores, Flores is able to control Madrigal for the majority of that fight. And he's not even a great wrestler, grappler in most of his fights. Madrigal's last fight, he did do a better job, though. He was able to turn in when his opponent got his back and on top, and eventually he did take the back and get a rear naked choke. And it looked like he does have good ability when he can get to the back mount. He has good rear naked chokes, good technical control, and I feel like he is a good top positional grappler, but his wrestling doesn't really allow him to show that off. So I'm going to predict the more athletic and powerful fighter in Oliveri wins here. I think that Vinicius Oliveri is probably going to land first and get the knockout. Fight is going to be a case of who lands first, probably, though. It's a great matchup. And I do think Oliveri should be decently favored, but I feel like he's a little bit too big of a favorite at minus 330 right now. So personally, it's a pass for me. The under is kind of juiced as well. So ultimately, I'm going to go with Oliveri, but not too interested in a bet on that fight in particular. And up next, we got a female fight. We got Ersta Carkett. She's taking on Judas. And Ersta Carkett, she's undefeated. She's fighting out of Lithuania. She's 25 years old. She's 4-0 with one draw so far in MMA. And she's fought some boxing and kickboxing fights. And she has only really fought on a small show so far, but at least she has went and fought in different countries. She fought in Lithuania. She fought in France. She fought in Estonia. She fought in the UAE. It's going to be her first fight in North America and the United States, though. And she's currently the Hexagon MMA champion. She earned that belt back in January, and now she's looking to prove that she could fight at world level. And you look at her, she's a good striker. Carkett, she's very tall, long, and lanky. She has a 3-inch reach advantage in this fight. And on the feet, she throws 3-2s. She'll attack the body. She'll throw 3-2 to head kicks, and she has good hand speed. So she's a fairly difficult striker to deal with, but she isn't as active at distance. She doesn't have as diverse a kicking game, in my opinion, as her opponent. So I think that her long punches and her length, her speed are going to help her, but I feel she's probably going to try to clinch in this fight like she has in a lot of her other fights. And I've never really seen Carkett in MMA fight another higher level striker like Judas. So it's going to be fun to see how they match up on the feet. But Carkett, she will use her striking and get the clinch. She'll push girls against the fence, kind of use her height and leverage to control. And I don't think the clinch is somewhere she wants to be in this fight, though, because I feel like Judas is a little bit more physical and she does a little bit more damage in those positions. And Carkett isn't really necessarily a good wrestler. I haven't really seen her get takedowns. It's more just cage control. And she can get taken down herself, but I don't see that being an issue in this fight. I don't see Judas going for takedowns. So it's probably going to be a stand-up fight. And for Judas, she's stepping up. She's taking this fight as a late replacement. Originally, Carkett was going to fight Sora Rachmanov, but that fight was canceled. And Judas has had about 9 days to get ready, so hopefully she could still perform well. But she's undefeated as a pro and amateur so far. She's 24 years old. All of her pro wins have been first-round finishes, so she has a lot of momentum right now. She was an amateur champion in the Gulf Coast MMA promotion, and as a pro, she's only really fought on small shows against low-level opposition. She trains out of Louisiana, Head Kicks MMA, which is Aaron Phillips' gym, a UFC veteran, and she set the majority of her fights in Louisiana. It's going to be her first fight outside of the South, and if she can get a first round finish in a row, I mean, she's almost guaranteed a UFC contract, so that's going to be what she's aiming to do. And Judas is impressive to me. If you ask me, her offensive striking is super high level for a female MMA. I mean, she's tall, long, lanky, very high volume. She's southpaw, so that's tricky, but she could switch stance. And she has a nasty jab, real nice left cross, good lead hook, 3-2s, 1-2s in combination. She could switch stance, do well from both stances. Nice kicks, good round kicks, side kicks, front kicks to all parts of the body. Very accurate as well, and she has power too. Her volume and pressure tend to wear girls down, and she does not slow down. I've seen her go a full 15-minute amateur fight, and she was able to push hard in a fifth round. And defensively, Judas needs some work. She is tough, and she has decent eyes, so sometimes she can kind of slip or roll with some shots, but her head movement needs work. She can get hit too often for my liking, and she's durable, though. She invites a war, and most of the time, Judas will win that battle. I mean, I don't think there's going to be too many girls that are going to outstrike her. We haven't seen much wrestling or grappling from Judas, but she showed a good ability to sweep and get back to her feet, and when she was taken down, she didn't spend much time on her back at all. She's very athletic. She's physically strong, so she's good in the clinch, too. She has heavy knees, and the cardio for Judas is on point. She does not get tired, and I think both these girls are decent. But I'm more impressed with Carly Judas. I think her offensive striking is pretty high level, and if she can clean up that defense, she could move into the top 10, top 5 almost immediately if her grappling and wrestling can hold up. That's something that we don't really know. But striking-wise, I think she definitely is going to be a really good striker in MMA. And it's a bit of a shame because I haven't seen Carkett fight another striker in a long time. I did watch one of her kickboxing fights from 2015, I believe, and she got dropped in that fight, and she ended up winning, and she looked decent enough, but it seemed like she was more of like a volume, tag you up with a lot of volume, doesn't really have a lot of power type of striker, and she did let some shots get in and hit her. So I think that Judas will probably be the better striker and the more powerful striker, but with that fight being so long ago, it's hard to kind of gauge too much on it, especially with Carkett only being 25 years old. So it's going to be a good one, but I'm going to go with Carly Judas, and I'll say she actually gets the second round knockout in this fight. And continuing through the card, we got another really good fight. We got Danny Silva. He's going to be fighting his opponent, Angel Pacheco. And Danny Silva, he's 26. He's a 7-1 pro fighter. His last 3 fights have been in the LFA against good opponents. And overall, he's fought really good competition. Trains at a good gym. He has UFC fighters on the mats with him. He is training at UFC Costa Mesa, which is Cub Swanson's camp. He has Rafa Garcia. He has Dan Argueta also at the gym. And even without the Contender Series, I would say he deserves a UFC spot or is like 1-2 fights away. So if he wins this one, I definitely think he'll get on the roster. And he's a slick striker. He could switch stance. He has good speed, good in and out movement. He does a great job pressuring, attacking the body. He has big hooks to the body, the head, and then he'll land nice counters too. He can land pullback overhands. He has good accuracy. His hand speed's on point. Sometimes he can kind of dig in and get clipped because he pressures hard and he can hold his hands low. He has great eyes though, and he rolls with shots well. He likes to make things ugly if he needs to, and you could tell he's a guy that enjoys fighting. In the pocket, he's nasty, man. He has really high-level boxing from MMA, great composure, rips the body, and when he does open up and let go with his headshots, he's powerful as well. And he isn't a wrestler or grappler. His takedown defense, from what I've seen, doesn't look very good. In his one career loss so far, he did get out-wrestled by Kanan Kawaihi. And Kawaihi is a long body who kind of made Silva chase him, was touching him with some shots from the outside, and then had a good game plan of kind of pot-shotting and then level changing and getting on top. And Silva working all the time with guys like Rafa Garcia, Dan Argueta, though. Has an okay get-up game, and he's going to improve his wrestling skills, I believe. And Silva's a fighter wrestlers better come in shape against, because if he can get back up or the round ends and he's not finished, he can maintain the same pace for 15 minutes, and he can even pick up the pace, and his body rips Wilt fighters. Even in round 3 of his loss to Kawaihi, Silva dominated that round, and Silva even showed in that round that if he can get on top, he has some really heavy ground and pound. He defended a takedown, got on top, and was able to do some damage there. So Silva's a good guy. He's a great prospect in my opinion. And Angel Pacheco, he's 31, so a little bit older. He fights out of Minnesota. He's trained out of Start BJJ, which is a gym that had a ton of fighters fight on the LFA card last weekend. So Pacheco has definitely been putting in hard rounds. And as far as level of competition in his MMA career, though, it leaves a lot to be desired. He did defeat a 5-2 fighter, Vilson Negrani, in his last fight, which is the best win of his career. But prior to that, he had fought Zach Schroeder, a fighter with a losing record and double-digit losses 2 times in a row. And the one fighter who Pacheco has fought that went on to fight for a major promotion is PFL veteran Nate Williams, and he lost that fight. So he has a lot to prove on Tuesday night. He needs to show the UFC brass he could step up and defeat higher-level opponents. But Angel Pacheco is a finisher. All of his wins as a pro came inside the distance. And when fights go longer, especially to the scorecards, he's usually in a little bit of trouble. If you include his amateur fights, he has 1 win and 6 losses when fights go to the scorecards. But Pacheco has a very similar style to Danny Silva. He has good boxing. He has a nice jab. He gets inside. He rips the body. He has, I would say, shown better anti-grappling and offensive grappling, but I don't think he has the ability to take down Silva or do much if he does get on top. I think that it's going to be more of a boxing match in MMA in the pocket. And Pacheco is very clean, and he is a a good striker in his own right, but I've seen him get dropped before. I think he is the less durable guy, a little bit less powerful guy. And I feel like this is going to be a war, though. It's going to be a great fight, but I think Silva is going to prove to be the slightly more dynamic striker, and I think he can get the job done inside the distance. So I think these guys are going to meet in the middle and give us the type of fight that a lot of fans love watching, but I think Danny Silva is going to be on the right end of it and win via knockout. And up next here, we got the co-main event with heavyweights in this fight. We got two guys that are kind of different in size. I mean, we got Alexander Soldotkin, who's 6'2", and then Mario Piazza. I know they have him listed at 6 foot, but UFC Stats has him at 5'9", and I think that's much more accurate. So really small heavyweight here in Mario, but you look at Soldotkin, he's 30 years old. He's trained out of Germany. He's 14-3, and he's currently on an 11-fight winning streak, so he kind of has figured things out. And 10 of his last 11 wins have been finishes. 9 were in the first round, so he's been running through almost everyone that he's fought, and he has 5 wins in less than a minute. I mean, if you think about that, it's pretty impressive. Competition-wise, he's been fighting guys with good records, too. He hasn't just been cherry-picking, and his last fight was his first fight out of Russia. That took place in France. This is going to be his first fight in the United States, and he's a very aggressive boxer. He's super fast. He has good speed for heavyweight especially. Technical, light on his feet. He'll throw nice combinations, good high guard. He has good head movement, feints. He will let his hands go with the 1-2s, 3-2s. He throws a lot of volume, and he comes forward with long combos. Most opponents can't handle his early onslaughts, and he isn't a wrestler or grappler offensively, but he has wrestling in his back pocket. He's tough to take down. His grappling seems a little bit lacking, though, and his last fight, he did get reversed. He was able to get on top, but he didn't do much and just kind of laid on top of the guy, and he also gave the mount, he gave the back, and it just seems like he's kind of weak and uncomfortable on the mat, and even his cardio seemed a little bit weak in that fight, and his cardio is a question mark because he hasn't had much experience in longer fights, but I've never seen him completely gas out. But Mario Piazza, he's undefeated, he's 25, he's fighting out of Brazil, and most of Piazza's opponents have been really low level. Out of all 6 of the guys that he's fought, only 2 had a winning record. His last fight even got flagged by Tapology due to it being a mismatched record padding fight, and doesn't even count on his record, so that's kind of bad to see. But Piazza has been fighting primarily for a demo fight in Brazil, and he's the current champion in that promotion. He's handled the competition accordingly. He's won 5 of his 6 fights via first-round knockout, and Alexander Soldotkin, though, is going to be his first fight outside of Brazil, first fight against a non-Brazilian, and the toughest opponent he will have faced to date. So Piazza, he's a small heavyweight. He's super short for the weight class. He's 6 foot on Tapology, but like I said, they have him at 5'9" on UFC Stats, and I think that's much more accurate. And unfortunately, it's difficult to find Piazza's fights online. I mean, I only found one of his fights, and it was his first pro fight. In that fight, he got knocked down with the first leg kick that his opponent threw, but he was able to kind of reverse, or he knocked down his opponent, He knocked down his opponent with the first leg kick he threw, and then ended the fight shortly after with ground and pound. So didn't really surmise much from that one. And I've seen highlights of another one of Piazza's fights where he dropped someone with a knee, then finished him with a ground and pound, but seems like a super compact guy. He has a ton of power. He throws hard leg kicks and will look to get inside and wing the hooks and overhands, knees. But I've barely seen anything to kind of base my opinion on him off of. And outside of his one decision, he hasn't had a fight go out of the first round. So he's light on experience. He's fought mostly nobodies. This is a huge step up, and I think he should look to get on top in this fight and expose that bad ground game of Soldotkin off his back. But that probably is going to be easier said than done. The only way I've seen Soldotkin down is, the only way I see him being able to really take Soldotkin down is by knocking him down. And I haven't seen Piazza show wrestling or grappling. I mean, the ground and pound finish, I guess you could say that, but that's about it. And with what I know, I have to lean towards Soldotkin just to win off resumes. I don't have a strong opinion because I'm not entirely sure what Piazza is going to bring, but I'm going to say that it's not going to last 15 minutes, and I'll go Soldotkin via first-round knockout here. And finally, we got the main event. We got Danny Barlow taking on Raheem Forrest, and Danny Barlow, he's a very tall and rangy welterweight. He's coming out of Tennessee, 28 years old. He's 6-0. His level of opposition has been low, and the majority of his opponents have had losing records. Most of the fighters that he's fought have had a small amount of fights as well. He was expecting to fight Justin Burlinson in this fight, who's a Cage Warriors and Contender Series veteran, but that fight didn't materialize. Now he's getting a short notice opponent in the 7-1 Raheem Forrest, which both those guys would have been a big step up in competition. So it's going to be a hard fight for Barlow. But Danny Barlow, he's a southpaw striker. He's super tall. He's long for the weight. In this fight, he has a 6-inch reach advantage, which is very significant. And he's primarily a pot shotter. Throws one-shot attacks. He kind of relies on his reach and speed to keep fighters at bay. And he has a nice left cross. He also likes to throw that 3-2 combination. He's very fast and athletic. He packs power. His defense is relying on reflexes and his height, so I think that could improve, but he's been hard to hit so far in his career for most fighters, and he's been able to dominate the majority of his opponents. He has 4 first-round finishes. I haven't seen much wrestling or grappling from Barlow, but I did watch him grapple Christian Eccles in combat jiu-jitsu, and his defensive grappling looked decent. He didn't show much offense and lost the match, though, but cardio for Barlow's on point. He always comes in shape and composed, and difficult guy to deal with his reach and his speed, and he has pretty technical striking. And Raheem Forrest, he's a CFFC champion, or a former CFFC champion, 7-1 pro record. He's 26 years old. He's fought the significantly better competition. He's coming off a 26-second victory over Treston Vines, who is a good fighter on the regional scene. And Forrest has one pro loss, actually came against Charlie Radke, who's we just saw get his first victory in the UFC recently. And Forrest, if he can win on Tuesday, will likely get signed, I would say, is a good resume in comparison to other Dana White Contender Series fighters. And Raheem Forrest is a big, muscular wrestler. He's big for the weight, and he'll pressure forward, throw big hooks. He tries to stick fighters and hold them against the cage, and he has some power in his hands, but it's just not the most refined. And he isn't a fighter who's going to be looking to strike long-term or get into long exchanges. If he connects with his hooks, he can knock his opponents out like we saw in his last fight. He has 4 knockouts, all in round 1, and he's primarily likes to kind of push guys against the cage, though. He has good clinch control, and when he can get on top, he has good top pressure. But he did kind of show his wrestling is a little lacking defensively in his fight with Colin Luberts. He got taken down several times. He gave his back in that fight, and then Charlie Radke was able to take his back and submit him. So I think he needs help with his game off bottom, but he should have the wrestling edge in this fight. And I imagine Barlow's going to try to keep his back off the cage and keep it more in the center, not really look to wrestle whatsoever. Forrest has good cardio. He has experience, and he's definitely going to be prepared for this moment. But I see this being a close fight. I agree with the line. Barlow has never fought someone at Forrest's level, but I think he has the skills. He has the natural height, reach. He's hard to deal with as a striker. Forrest isn't a great striker or wrestler. He's just kind of an athletic guy with power who's physical and can hold you against the cage. If he can hold Barlow against the cage or maybe expose him and easily out-wrestle and grapple him, then he's going to get the win. But I'm going to edge it towards the striking, offense, and athleticism of Barlow. And from what I've seen from Forrest, I do think that he's very durable, and I do think he will have some moments of holding Barlow against the cage too, but I just think Barlow's going to do the better offense, and I see him winning a decision. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this Dana White Contender Series breakdown and predictions video. Hope you learned something from it. I'm going to be back breaking down another card soon in MMA, so make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed. Stay locked into the channel. Please hit that like button, man. Let's try to get over 100 likes. I would really appreciate that. That would be really awesome from you guys to let me get those likes. So hit that like button if you're listening right now. And besides that, man, come to Patreon, support the channel, make yourself some money. And I'll talk to you guys later. Really appreciate y'all.